I'll call this meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Chair Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Huber.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Kurth.
Here.
Thank you.
The first item is approval of minutes of February 26th. Oh, I'm sorry. Invocation will be led by Commissioner Huber and the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Kurth.
Heavenly Father, help us to remember that we are here to serve and not to be served. Remind us daily of the many who need to be helped. Guide us to be there for others and assist them in times of need. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Now we can have approval of minutes of February 26th.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
The first public hearing is PLN 14-4 with Mark Ward. I own property that is within the 300 feet of his property, and I have to recuse myself. I'll be turning it over to Commissioner Huber.
And I'll also be recusing myself as I have a financial interest in a property right near there.
All right, staff, who's got this one?
Actually, Associate Planner Alex Hadigi will be presenting this one.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Members of the Commission. Agenda item number 1, case number PLN 14-00004, is a site plan and conditional use permit to allow for the addition of 390 square feet of living area to an existing non-conforming multifamily structure. Staff notes that it is not going to increase number of units at the site. It is merely an addition of living area to an existing unit to change it from a studio essentially to a 2-bedroom unit. Additionally, the addition itself meets the requirements of the underlying RS district in terms of setbacks and building height, where the RS district for single family did not have standards for multifamily development. Staff utilized the residential apartmental district, which is a neighboring district for standards, and this project meets those requirements in terms of the additional height, the additional square footage for the structure, as well as recreational living space. As noted in the staff report, it is deficient in parking and trash enclosure. However, as conditioned, staff still supports the project, and I'm here for any questions if you have any.
Questions?
I don't have any.
Staff? Thank you, Alex. We'll open the public hearing, and Mark Ward.
Good evening, and thank you for hearing this item this evening. I'm here to answer any questions. I concur with the staff report with all conditions, including placement of a city sidewalk or city-owned sidewalk that I'll donate after the project.
No questions. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Gilmore Bardotas. Pardon? Anyone else wishing to speak on this project? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Comments? Motion?
I move to adopt and find the project category exempt per sequence section 15303 new construction or conversion of small structures, and adopt resolution number P-14-022, approving the conditional use permit portion of case number PLN 14-00004, subject to the attached conditions of approval, and adopt resolution number P-14-023, approving the site plan portion, case number PLN 14-00004, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
Second.
And that's been approved.
Agenda item number 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Item number 2 is PLN 14-5, and it is being requested by the applicant People's Care Incorporated. The location is 13901 Amargosa Road. This is a conditional use permit that will allow for changes in the parking. When the project was originally approved for the adult daycare facility in 2009, the vans that they used to transport clients to and from the business that parking was to be limited along the alleyway, and it was to be limited to 10 transport vans. But business is so good, they have 16 vans now, but they've had a lot of vandalism in the alleyway, so they're now requesting them to be in the front parking lot. Vans are gone during the daytime, and this would be nighttime parking, and staff supports the proposal as conditioned.
Very much. I'll declare the public hearing open and ask if anyone wishes to speak for or against this item. There being no response, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for the pleasure of the Commission.
Madam Chair, I'll find that the project is category exempt under Section 15301 of the state guidelines of CEQA, and adopt Resolution P-14-024, approving CUP PLN 14-00005, subject to the attached conditions of approval.
And I'll second.
Mr. Ward, that has been approved. Agenda item number 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Item number 3 is planning case PLN 13-00013. It is a development code amendment to allow for the establishment of solar power generation facilities as a conditional use within the single-family residential district. This also includes a site plan, conditional use permit, mitigated negative declaration, and associated development agreement to construct and operate a phased 60-acre, 10-megawatt solar power generation facility on single-family residential district land. The specific project is located north of Palmdale Road, east of the logical extension of Mesa Linda Avenue, and south of the logical extension of Seneca Road. In general terms, it's located between the large utility easement, Edison easements, north of Palmdale Road, directly north of the Victorville substation. The code amendment, however, would affect parcels citywide, but staff has included, if the Commission were to recommend approval, operating standards or parameters of when a solar facility can move forward. In this case, we've provided guiding standards that approximately a quarter of the property has to front one of these large utility easements. So that would restrict any proposal from locating in the heart of a residential district that's not associated next to one of these large utility easements. It also includes maximum height restrictions of 10 feet within that district. This proposal would comply with all of those standards as set forth in the staff report. It is included as a phased project. The developer, if you could see on the site plan here, phase 1 would be the 2 parcels that run down the middle of the site, and then phase 2 would include the opposite ends of both sides of phase 1. This shows a little bit clearer. The developer would be responsible for paving Seneca Road and portions of Palmdale Road, and that's listed in the conditions. The development agreement would lock the developer's rights in for a period of 25 years. That's the term of the conditional use permit. The developer is also proposing a mitigation fee to compensate for some of the offset potential loss of residential property tax revenue that the city would receive. So that's included in the development agreement as well. Staff is comfortable with the conditions. This is only a recommendation to the city council. I believe the applicant's here so they can provide some more information. I believe they have a short presentation as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Should, after the close of the public hearing, the Planning Commission decide that it would, in fact, like to recommend, frankly, either approval or denial of the project to the City Council, what I would like to suggest is that staff could actually work with the City Attorney's Office and also possibly the applicant to make any substantive changes to just the development agreement only, should there be any. There could be, Andre looks at the agreement and sees something that maybe I didn't see, or something like that, and so we would ask for that that concession if and when it goes up to City Council.
Questions for staff?
I had one question for Scott.
Sure.
When you were mentioning the design conditions and standards for future projects, maybe in other parts of the city, I was a little unclear. You mentioned 1/4 of the frontage of it would need to be facing the power easement like that. It's typical situation. How do we calculate the 1/4? Is that like a lineal frontage of the long side of the property facing, or is it calculated by the whole site square footage?
Yeah, it would be taking the linear frontage that fronts the utility easement. So 1/4 of the perimeter of the entire property needs to front that utility easement.
Okay.
We didn't want peninsula effects where maybe only a slight portion of the property touches the easement, and then it would intrude more into the surrounding R1 district.
Okay, and we feel that's enough teeth to make sure that they are up against power lines like that, because there's probably not too many other situations in the city except that one run going through there, right?
Yeah, and the city attorney may be able to explain more of this. We can't create codes that are only specific to this proposal. There has to be other scenarios where they can allow a solar facility. So we can't make the code so structured that only this applicant in this location could put a solar facility. So that's the reason. If you go over 25%, you may be getting into that realm where else can you actually locate a solar facility in the R1 district?
So you're saying then it would be almost like zoned out for good anyways.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And I'll declare the continued public hearing open. I have 2 cards here. If you wish to speak, please present the card. Brian Marsteller.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Brian Marsteller. I grew up in Hesperia, and I currently live in Apple Valley, California. I also represent the IBEW, Electrical Workers Union, San Bernardino County. and I'm here speaking in favor of this project. As long as I've lived up here, family and friends have always talked about local jobs. At the Little League field, at church on Sunday, my neighbors talk about they wish they didn't have to drive down the hill for a good paying job. And this project here will provide them that opportunity. It'll also give them a chance to do what we Americans do best when afforded the opportunity, is to put in a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, provide for our family and loved ones. Excuse me. It's also a sizable investment of private capital in the local economy. It'll not only benefit the workers on the project, but also local businesses that will supply and support the project during the construction phase. And I think that's important, that as all of us are just barely turning the corner, recovering from the recent recession. It's also, I think, in a very responsible location, just adjacent to the substation and near the power lines, where even during the housing boom, none of the developers chose that land to put residential project. And so I urge you to pass this project, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The applicant, Mr. Garrett Bean.
Good evening, Commissioners. I have a short presentation to add a little more color to the project, and I'll be able to answer some of your questions as well, if you have any. I work with Silverado Power. We've done quite a bit of business out here in the high desert, throughout Lancaster, San Bernardino County, Victorville. One of our projects is actually approved and in construction as we speak. But we're here today to talk about Seneca Solar. It's our new one. And we've been working on it with the planning staff for quite some time. To just give you a little idea of how we go about our site selection, we try and do it in the most responsible way, and we've been complimented and commended for that throughout our process. San Bernardino, for instance, had their solar moratorium, and we're using our projects of examples of how to do business. So I think that does go to show that we're doing it the right way. But to show you kind of how we select a site, first we look for proximity to existing infrastructure. So we're looking for the transmission wires, distribution lines, and we want to get as close to that as possible so we don't have to build additional ones that are going to crisscross the landscape. The second thing we do is we want to focus on disturbed land. This site right now has roads going through it. We've done many environmental surveys to clear the site to make sure that it was suitable for this type of development. Right now, it's actually, there's a lot of dumping going on at the site. We're going to be cleaning it up, doing the improvements as are highlighted in the conditional use permit. I mentioned minimize biological impacts, cultural impacts. We did all of the studies for burrowing owl, the tortoise, Mojave ground squirrel, cultural items of significance. All of those ended up clean, so we decided to proceed with the site. The project, as Scott described, is located adjacent to these high voltage transmission lines. The easements are over 250 feet wide, so they have significant setbacks from additional residential property. Where the project is not set back from additional property, there will be a wall, a concrete wall with vegetation buffers around it, just for aesthetic purposes, to make sure we're a good neighbor, not trying not to impact any future development as much as possible. I think this is a good project because we're going to be adding infrastructure such as road and improvements to facilitate more development as we go on. The interconnection for the site, unlike many solar projects, is actually on our property, and it's adjacent to the site, so we're not building any extra transmission lines. Going on, there's a couple site photos. As you can see, there's massive towers, distribution lines of all sizes crisscrossing our project site. So we really think this is a good site. We're not really taking away from too much aesthetic impacts. We're actually improving it. And just so you know, that's one shot from Palmdale Avenue looking north, which is right in front of the Victor substation, and then the other one is looking south towards our project site with the Victor substation in the background. We also think this is a great project for everyone here in Victorville just because of the jobs and economic impacts that it's going to bring the city. We've been contracting with subcontractors for surveying, for biological studies, for things of that nature, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the project. We estimate that at around $150,000, including what we have done and what we will do. There's $170,000 in direct revenue after we start building the project. So we're paying taxes on all the panels when they arrive to the project site. That goes directly to the city. We've also agreed to do a $200,000 development agreement. We worked with the planning staff, the city manager to kind of, make sure that this was the right approach, can offset any potential residential that might be future. Personally, I don't think that there's going to be a lot of residential going in right next to those power lines, but in case there is, we wanted to make sure we account for that to be a responsible developer. And then there's studies that have indicated that there's going to be well over $500,000 of additional economic stimulus to the region just from indirect impacts from people doing business in the area, our contractors going out, buying goods, working with numerous businesses in the area. So we're really excited about it. We think it's a great investment for Victorville and can bring a lot to the table. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we have been working with numerous groups throughout Victorville as we've advanced some of our other projects in Victorville and this one. Local businesses, we're contracting with those. Local property owners, I hope you received some of the letters of support that were sent in from some of the property owners the other day. We've actually also gone out to neighboring facilities. When we were thinking about building a site just to the south of it, we got over 100 letters of support from the neighbors. This one doesn't have too many neighbors, so that's probably a good thing. But regardless, we've received substantial support. We've been working with Victor Valley College. We've had members sit on their board to help establish curriculum that will help these students go into the profession. We've also received support from our projects from Supervisor Levengood and also from Steve Knight, Senator Steve Knight. So we're definitely in the community, working with the Victorville Chamber of Commerce, making sure we do business right. And we look forward to building that future relationship with you and appreciate your support on the project. Thank you.
I have just one quick question. You mentioned in your presentation that there's going to be 60 to 70 jobs that were going to be created.
Mm-hmm.
Are those just construction jobs while they're being built? And if that's the case, how many, I guess, more permanent jobs are going to be created through like the maintenance and functionality of the project?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the 60 to 70 jobs are during construction. It's a construction type industry. After that, we will have part-time staff doing maintenance around the facility, keeping up the landscaping, making sure the panels are operating. That's a much smaller workforce. It's going to be like 1 to 2 people, and we have a couple sites around here and other places in the high desert. So we'll have several people out here continuously operating. But I think the important thing to note, and that we try to note, is that this is a trade, part of the construction business. So while this job is temporary, these skills that these employees are using are transferred to other projects throughout the region. So,
thank you.
Yep.
And if this is approved, when do you anticipate it being completed?
We would like to be operational by September. So we'd actually like to be out starting construction in May of this year.
2014?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to this item? Then I will close the public hearing and ask what the pleasure of the commission is.
I had one question I just saw here for staff, if I can. In the map, the upper right-hand corner of the project looks like a 10-acre piece that would not be a part of the site, and that's the only section that doesn't have a buffer that's zoned R1 that could foreseeable in the future see homes on it. Correct? As far as the block wall, this developer would only be responsible along Seneca, correct? And then would it be the future residential developer that would be responsible for the rear block wall along the rear of the homes on that 10 acres in the future?
That is correct. Yeah, so currently in phase 1 and phase 2, assuming that we don't receive any entitlements or a subdivision on that site, they would be allowed to, based on this current standard or proposal, they would be allowed to move forward with putting chain link on the areas that do not front Seneca. By chance, if we did receive some entitlement for a residential development, we would require them to put in the block wall.
Okay. And on the, I know, and that's in the staff report conditions, the wall that this developer is to put up on Seneca is 7 feet, is that?
That's the current proposal, but the commission may choose to go higher or lower.
Okay, and the only question I had on that was I noticed that the height of the panels, a maximum height of, I think it was about 6.5 feet is what the staff, oh, it's 10 foot?
Yeah, a maximum of 10 feet is what the code standards are, and that's what the applicant's proposing as well. I don't know if the applicant can confirm that, but I think it varies between like 6 to 10 feet.
Paula, can he speak in the mic?
Well, would you come forward, please, so that we can, everyone can hear you?
Yep, no problem.
Sorry about that. I just saw on the plans, in one of your renderings, it showed the tilt angle, and it showed it at a 6.5 foot height.
Exactly. So the code amendment is for 10 feet. However, our project with the way we're going forward is proposed at around 6.5 to 7. There will also be setbacks from that block wall, so you won't be able to see it behind there.
Okay, and on the only part I'm concerned about is future residential. So if homes do abut right up in the northeast corner there will still be a buffer from the block wall into the project from where the homes are, because my concern is if they do in residential, is it a 6 foot block wall in the backyard?
Typically 6 feet, yes.
So, and if these are 6.5 feet and they're kind of close, I could see that those neighbors might see that from their patio or what have you. Because I noticed on page 165, there's a section C from the construction drawings that weren't in our hard copy full site. And it looks to me, you can barely see it in the gray, but it looks like on their plan it says 8 foot block wall. Yeah, I mean, you can barely see it in the dark gray writing. I didn't know if it was 8 or 7 on that.
That is correct. We kind of went back and forth on what we should propose to you to digest as to what the appropriate height would be. What we finished on was keep it consistent with the R1 zone, but I don't believe an uptick of 1 foot to 8 feet total would make that big of a difference.
Yeah, I don't think it does, not on Seneca, but just once again concerned if the future homes came in and that developer came in and his requirement was a 6 foot high block wall and this project had panels 20 feet over that were sticking up a foot or two above, how would we have the ability to get that residential developer when he has to put his block wall in to go higher? Would that be a problem in the future?
Well, I guess we could propose to the applicant, or they could propose, since they're at 6.5 feet right now, you could place a condition on this conditional use permit alone that limits the height. Even though the proposed code amendment allows you to go up to 10 feet, you could say within 100 feet of that residential property, they need to limit their height to 6 feet or 6.5 feet, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Is that something that's reasonable for the project?
Well, we need to bring some consistency as the panels transact the site, so that doesn't work very well for us. What I would point out, though, is that with the setback, we have perimeter access roads required for fire department access. So if we're really talking about, 6 inches or something like that, they are set back significantly. It's not abutting the other property. So what we've seen in the past is that, when you're standing back from it, it's not really an eyesore.
Yeah.
At 6
How far?
inches.
How wide is that? The set perimeter road?
20 feet.
20 feet. So that's probably far enough then, huh? From a view angle from a patio to not catch, even if they're higher, unless it's a 2-story home, and that's up to the developer. Okay.
I would like to add that the applicant's been pursuing, and I believe they'll continue to pursue this property owner to include it in a future phase. So I think their hope is to eventually make this whole triangle solar.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are in contact with that developer or with that property owner, and for the project that's coming online right now, the timing didn't work out. So eventually, it's a great fit. So obviously, we'd like to fit it in.
Okay. And if that future property owner developed residential homes on that site, would that developer be allowed to go higher than the 6 feet on his rear block wall? Could he go 7?
The current code allows him to go 7.
He goes to 7, so that's probably what they'll do anyways then. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to recommend to City Council approval of the mitigated negative declaration, adopt Code Amendment Resolution P-14-003, conditional use permit resolution number P-14-014, site plan resolution number P-14-05, and development agreement resolution number P-14-011, all of which recommend City Council approve this project.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Should there be any substantive changes to be approved by the city attorney's office and staff between now and the time it actually goes to city council, just for the development agreement?
Okay.
And I'll second the motion.
Mr. Bean, your project has been approved. Public comments on planning matters. In compliance with the Brown Act, it is necessary for the Planning Commission to make available time for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of interest that fall within the Planning Commission's subject matter jurisdiction. Please limit the length of your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during the public comment? Go on to agenda item number 5, presentation of reports by commission members. Commissioner Smith.
For me, thank you.
Nothing. Thank you.
Commissioner? Well, then I will adjourn this meeting to a joint meeting with the City Council at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
When's your birthday?